Hi everyone, welcome back to our third interview here at the Human Exploring Society. As we said previously, this is yet another instrument we will be using more and more in the next months to help us discuss various issues and challenging topics with many guests from all over the world.
Yep, and today we bring you an incredible guest who comes from the world of business, but in reality, it's very hard to put this particular guest with one title. He is the founder and owner of Ecotricity, a British energy company specialized in selling green energy that is generated by wind power. He is also a writer with his first book, Manifesto, published last year. He's a patron in a fascinating sector, the world's only sustainable diamond industry. He's also a doctor of philosophy, and last but certainly not least, he is a major shareholder in the world's first carbon neutral and vegan football club. So today we're lucky enough to be in the company of Dale. Welcome to the Human Exploring Society, Dale. And
thanks very much.
No problem. So quickly, the first question, maybe we'll start with the game. Let's imagine you had to get rid of one of many things that you've done or do in your life. What do you think it would be? Is there one particular thing that you think is less important than the others?
There must be. If I had to ditch something, that's interesting. Of all of the things we do, probably the least impactful right now is that we manufacture small windmills. We've been doing it for a long time. We're Britain's last manufacturer because our government turned against the industry, and it's least impactful. So if I had to give something up, I would throw that under the bus. But I don't want to give it up because the world needs small windmills, and I know that the industry will come back in Britain, and we're exporting them around the world anyway. But it's our least impactful thing at the moment.
All right. Oh, that's very interesting.
And speaking of the book also, let's talk now about the beginning of your career. I believe that your story is not only unique because of the things that you have achieved, but also for the way in which you have achieved them. You lead by example. Would you like to tell us more about how it all started?
Yeah, so it all started a very long time ago. We're talking early 90s. I'd spent 10 years. You want this story, do you? I'll compress it. But
compressed.
Yeah. So I spent 10 years living on the road in a kind of a variety of different vehicles, living a low impact, off-grid kind of life, learned a lot in the process. At the end of that 10 years, had a small windmill powering my trailer. And the first wind farm was built in England. I went and saw it and thought to myself, I could spend another 10 years living this low impact lifestyle personally, or I could drop back in and try and build a big windmill on this hill where I was living. So I dropped in, set about doing that, took 5 years, realized I needed to start an energy company, started Ecotricity in 1995, and everything else, the rest, as they say, is history. So I chose energy because I was aware at the time of the climate crisis, and I was aware that the way we made energy in Britain was the biggest single cause of carbon emissions at that time. And I thought it makes right sense to start there. And in the early 2000s, having achieved quite a few things in energy with that kind of ball rolling, I went looking for the second and third biggest source of carbon emissions and found transport and food. And I found that energy, transport and food were collectively responsible for 80% of everybody's personal carbon footprint, which to me was a revelation. And it's still, it is the key part of our message to everybody because we think it empowers people. Because, we're bombarded by competing advice. We tend to think our role in this big crisis is very small. What can we really do about it? And our message is this: that 80% of the problems are in your hands because we all spend money every day on how we power our homes, how we travel, and what we eat. And that's 80% of the problem. So spend it on something different and the world goes in a different direction. So we built an electric car. We built a national network of charging points for cars. Campaigned really for vegan plant-based diets, and then rescued our local football club, which started a whole new chapter of the adventure. Most recently launched Sky Diamond, and actually that brings me neatly to this point. So right now in Britain, this is heavy. Right now in Britain, we have an energy crisis. Europe has an energy crisis, but we have a CO2 crisis off the back of it. There's a shortage of CO2.
Yeah.
Right. So we're just about to launch this.
Wow. Sky Gas. Wow.
Yes. So part of what we do at Sky Diamond is to extract carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And we use it in our process. So we're just setting up now to pump that into bottles like this that are used in the drinks industry. So at the football club, in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be powering our beer pumps with carbon dioxide taken from the atmosphere. At the moment, it comes from fossil fuels, like everybody else's carbon dioxide, which is in short supply. And so we're just going to kind of start off down a new road and say, look, there's plenty of carbon dioxide around, actually. In fact, there's too much. So this is what we need to be doing.
Amazing.
That's great news.
Such a good use for it.
You got it first.
Yeah, that's incredible. Was that just around today?
It literally just walked past my eye line as we were talking, and I called it in.
Amazing. Oh, brilliant. Oh, well, good luck.
Thank you for the extra.
Yes.
And speaking of your ideas and beliefs, Dave, in this book, you use the pandemic as a lesson in both a positive and negative way. And in our opinion, you suggest it's both a lesson in the harsh realities of wrong policies, but it has also shown us what we are able to do when we have to face such a global threat. Am I right? Is that a kind of lesson?
Yeah, I would say it taught us two really big things. One is we can find incredible sums of money when we feel the need to, when we feel that imminent existential threat that the virus presents itself as. And two, we can make dramatic changes to how we live. I mean, so dramatic. Again, when we face that existential threat. And in both cases, it's far more money and it's far bigger changes to how we live than we actually need to fight the climate crisis. Because in Britain, we spent 300 billion, which is 10 years of a zero carbon budget, all in 1 year. We only need a tenth. And we had these incredible lockdowns and all that kind of stuff. We don't need to do that to fight the climate crisis. We just got to change how we live. On the big fronts of energy, transport, and food, just power our homes differently, travel differently, eat differently. That's all we have to do. So yeah, I think coming off the back of that, I would say that the climate crisis has always looked distant, geographically and in time. It's out there somewhere. It's coming one day. We've never felt the urgency. We need to see the climate crisis in the way that we saw the virus crisis, because actually, if it lands, it'll be far worse, and we won't be able to undo it. Social distancing won't save us, and we can't create a vaccine for it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree. And just going back to the very base of your business, the renewable energy sector, we've seen renewables growing slowly for years now. But now we're literally in an emergency. How do you see this sector being an accelerator for the necessary changes we need?
I think energy is the most advanced of the three sectors we have to change. In Britain, we're 40% green electricity on the grid. We could get to 100% in the next 10 years. It would be pretty easy. We've got the technology. It's being mass produced. It's economic. It's the cheapest form of new energy that we can build. All the ingredients are there. We've got to create a smart grid with storage and demand control and that kind of stuff, smart meters, but that's all coming. Yeah. So really, that box is ticked as far as I'm concerned. When it comes to transport, we've been pushing hard for electrification of cars. We started 10 years ago. And right now, where we are in Britain today and most other places in the world, 10 years from now, you won't be able to buy a car that is driven by petrol or diesel. Right. So that revolution, that transformation is well underway. And we're seeing electric buses on the roads now. Electric trains really need to be done properly without the overhead or line electrification, but with batteries on board the train. And then it can work on every train line, in the world. That needs to be done. Planes are in R&D and they're definitely coming. HGVs are coming out of R&D. So electrification of transport is completely possible and it's happening. And then when it comes to food, we've got to stop farming animals. It's as simple as that. Change what we eat. That's a matter of choice and education. We've got to show people how harmful it is, not just to the environment, but to human health and to animal welfare, just how cruel and harsh that it is and how wasteful, because it costs so much more to feed ourselves that way than it does if we're plant-based. We've just got to educate ourselves. So we've got everything we need. All we're really lacking, I think, is the political will or grasp of the situation and the politics. Right. So the policies that can change our economy and point it in this different direction.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk now for a while about your experience in football with Forest Green Rovers. what I'm curious about is to know if you had any contact or request from other football teams in order to help them to adopt your same strategy. And please do remind our audience about the wonderful goals you have achieved regarding the sustainability of the team, like the diet, the pitch, the energy, also the shirts, even the shirts of the team.
Yeah. Okay. So Forest Green Rovers for us began as a rescue mission just to save our local football club. I didn't give it any thought, never had a plan. Just kind of got it dropped on me that if I didn't take responsibility for it, it would go bankrupt. And I thought, oh, I'm a football fan. It's in our backyard. Let's save it. Day one, I bumped into the fact that Forest Green Rovers was doing things that I couldn't live with, like serving red meat, for example. So immediately we began to change stuff and realized quite quickly that we would be changing everything about the club. In effect, we'd be creating a green football club, something never been done before. And we'd be talking to an entirely new audience about environment stuff, one that really gets talked to about that kind of stuff, football fans. And that it would not be easy. We would not be preaching to the choir, which made it more appealing. And so we did it. We wove sustainability into the DNA of the football club. We put it on an equal footing with the football. It's as important to us what we do on the pitch and what we do off the pitch. And we implemented a whole range of stuff, but we started with energy transport and food, solar panels on the rooftops, electric car charging points and electric vehicles, and a plant-based diet. We've got an organic football pitch, so we use no pesticides or fertilizers on that. Underneath the pitch, we capture the water and we use it again. We put it back on the pitch.
Yeah.
We banned single-use plastics. We kicked out sugary drinks. We've got zero to landfill and we compost everything. And around the edges, literally and metaphorically, we've got a wild area where we have slow worms and orchids. We've made space for nature at the football club as well. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell. That's what we've done.
Yeah. And did you have any requests from other teams also?
Question, yes. Yes, I would say beginning, I don't know, 8-9 years ago, never stopping, just increasing in volume. A couple of weeks ago, it was 2 Premier League teams. Obviously 3-4 years ago, it was the United Nations themselves knocking on the door saying, we're planning to do something similar. And they invited us to help set up this Sport for Climate Action thing that I'm very happily a champion for. And now that has 250 members globally from all the sports that you could name, organizing bodies and clubs that participate. And the goal is to engage the global audience of sports fans, which numbers into the billions, and get them to change how they live, make them aware of the climate change and what they can do at home, which is what we do at Forest Green. And we found that it works. We found that a football audience is not difficult to talk to. They are just the same as everybody else. And we've shown them not just what we're doing, but why we're doing it. And we've seeded for them the idea that they could do something at home. And they're going veggie and vegan, buying electric cars, using solar panels, and they've embraced the whole green thing that we do, And we've got a global fan base as well. We've got 100 fan clubs in 20 different countries of the world. We're not a big football club, but we stand for something. And, people have joined us for that.
Absolutely. As you say, it's just about the seed. It's about planting the seed.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It's definitely more than a club. Someone says like that for their, the Spanish team, but for you, it's actually like that, more than a club.
More than a club. Yeah, it's a mission.
Yes.
And it's like a new frontier or channel. What I've discovered is that sport is the most incredible way to communicate with people. And you could imagine that and believe that it's true because of the power of sports stars, for example, to influence people. But we've actually experienced it as a very small football club. We looked, we got a media report a couple of weeks ago. It looked globally at our impressions in all forms of media, online, radio, TV, that kind of stuff. 5 billion impressions in 1 year globally.
Wow.
Amazing. That's incredible.
Mad.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's good. Well, finally, we've come to our last question. And you've probably already talked about it. It's quite a broad one. But where do you see yourself in maybe a year, say October 2022? What do you think the next thing on the horizon is for you or the company?
It's tough to know, really. We've just got out of the electric car charging game because we want to make room for the bigger, more serious players. We pioneered it, and now it just needs big money and a long-term approach. So we got out of the way of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think green energy is working really well. We're going to double down on our mission and try and build a shed load more in Britain because it's urgent to close the 60% gap. We've got the diamond thing kicking off.
Yeah.
We've got a water machine just coming out of R&D, which is quite amazing. It could change the world, really. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to politics because I feel that this is the weak area now. As I said before, we've got the technology, it's economic, we have the imperative to act. People want it, businesses get it. All of that stuff's happening. But there's nowhere in the world, I think, Biden would run close to this, where we have a leader and a government that actually get the urgency and are prepared to put the money in and change the policies, do the bold things that we need. So I might do that.
Absolutely. Oh, well, you've got our full support.
Thank you.
That's encouraging news.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We were waiting for that. So thank you again for this interview, Dale. It's been a real pleasure, and we really trust our paths will cross with you again. And we will just say, for those of you interested in the book, Manifesto, they can visit your website at zerocarbonista.com. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and also thank you to our audience, who hope we to see again here soon as we release our next interview. See you soon. Thank you again, Dave.
Yeah, pleasure, guys. Good luck with everything.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.